I wanted to kind of end my Shadowdark love fest by bringing up some of the Shadowdark house rules that I brought into play. I've now been using these house rules both in my long-term game, that's where they sort of came up, and now I've been using them in my one-shots. And I wanted to offer these up. Obviously, you get to decide whether or not you think these are good house rules or not, and I will explain why I have them, but I really like them. My first one is that characters cannot stabilize at 0 hit points. So one of the issues we had, and we had this in our game, was if you are able to stabilize a dying character to 0, what do you do with them then? If you didn't have a way to heal them and you're in the middle of a dungeon, do you just drag this person around with them? What does the player do? What do you do with that? So my rule was you either have a hit point or you're dying. There is no stabilization. That the only way to get a character back up and running is to heal them, or they're going to die after 1d4 rounds. That is one of the rules I put in play. It's brutal, but you'll see that I have other nicer rules on the other side to kind of help counteract that. But basically, like, you get in this weird zone of like a character's at 0 hit points, it doesn't work. The other one is, I really like this. I usually ask my players if they want me to do this, but almost always they say yes, is that the GM rolls to see how many rounds it takes until a character dies, and they keep it in secret. So I will, like, on their death, I will roll a d4 and hide it. And then I'll wiggle my eyebrows and be like, I know how long you have, right? And I might use like in-world descriptions, like they're coughing blood, it looks really bad, they're stop breathing, right? And so I can use in-game descriptions to kind of talk about how bad it is, but the players don't know, and that means they're like, it's vital for them to get somebody back up and on their feet, because they don't know if they're going to die in the next round. This is one where I'm really nice. Characters do not lose a spell on a failed spell check until they have successfully cast the spell at least once. So I've had it where players will have 3 or 4 spells and they will roll their checks and fail them all and lose all their spells and never get a chance to cast a single spell. That's happened more than once in the games that I've run, particularly at low levels where the check is kind of harder. So the new way is, if you have a spell, you still can fail at the check and the spell still won't go off, but you don't lose access to the spell until you've cast it at least once. That way you get at least one good casting out of a spell without making the spell work. Now, you might say like, well, why not just have it not fail the first time you cast it? But that's really powerful. If you know a spell is going to work, that's very different than rolling to do the check. One thing that's not really well understood about Shadowdark by a lot of people is this spellcasting check, which some people really don't like, that's the equivalent of an attack roll or a saving throw. So there are generally speaking, you don't have attack rolls or saving throws inside Shadowdark. If you cast the spell and it works, it just works. If you throw a Burning Hands and the Burning Hand succeeds, they take damage. They don't make saving throws on their side. If you cast these spells, they either work and they work at their full potential, or they don't. So the spellcasting check is really replacing saving throws and spell attack rolls. But the idea that you lose the spell if you fail is pretty good. Except if you burn all your spells out and you never get a chance to cast it, that's a lot. Now, I've had people tell me that this is too powerful as well. This means that characters get a lot of spell slots because they get to fire off a spell at least once before they fail. I think that's okay. I think that I think that it works out in the end. I've started using this and I have not seen the game become suddenly far too easy. But I didn't have this in play for my big long campaign, so I don't know how well that works across a long campaign. One thing I found across a long campaign is the spell casting ability checks become easier for characters to pass. They get things like spell specialization where they get advantage on the check. They're a lot less likely to fail on a spell check. Characters all start with a luck point at the beginning of a session, and they can share the luck points among themselves. That's a new one. Again, it's kind of the way I was handling inspiration in D&D. I didn't want to handle inspiration. I'm busy. I got too many things to do. So it's easier for me to throw inspiration or luck points out at characters at the beginning of a session. I think there are some character classes that start with a luck point, so they would get 2. And the idea is you can share them. The only thing you can't do with them, you can re-roll any D20 roll, but you cannot force the GM to roll a D20 roll. One of the sort of pulp mode versions in Shadowdark would let them kind of force disadvantage on an enemy who attacked. I hated that. That felt like silvery barbs to me, and I didn't want that. So I said, no, you can re-roll any of yours, but you can't make anybody else re-roll any of theirs. But you can't share them among each other. And that actually made things easier, right? It made things a little less lethal, but it also meant less stuff that I had to track. Then here's another mean one. Lighting a torch in the dark. If you're in the complete darkness and you're trying to light a torch, it is a DC 12 dexterity or intelligence check at disadvantage. My argument here is if you have light and you're trying to light a torch, it is no problem. You've got everything. You can see. It's no problem for you to light a torch in the light. But if you're in complete darkness, now you're fumbling around in your pack to find your flint and tinder, to find the torch, to line them all up and to light them. It is either a matter of dexterous hands or of deep intelligence. But even still, you can't see it. And if you can't see it, you're at disadvantage. So I have seen groups have a really hard time with this. But I think it's one way to kind of really add the tension. And almost always in my games, the minute the light goes out, monsters start immediately showing up. Like, I don't even start rolling checks. I always talk about the things that are lurking in the dark that are coming right at them. It scares the hell out of people. It's really fun. One that I haven't tried out, but I'm wondering about, is starting characters with maximum hit points. Again, making things a little bit easier for your first level characters, making it a little bit more heroic. It's really not that much because the starting hit points are really like, you can still get knocked out with like 2 attacks. But it'd be a little bit nicer to not get completely killed on the first hit that ever goes against you. One thing that I do know is you go, oh my God, this is completely sacrilege. How dare you say that you're going to maximize hit points? If you look at the pre-gen characters that come in the quick start guides, a lot of them have very high hit points. A lot of them have kind of maximum hit points. And Kelsey has talked about the fact that offering up more hit points on those makes things a little bit more palatable for con games or for people that are starting brand new to not get just immediately killed. I'm not so sure. I haven't really done this, but I'm not so sure how bad an idea it is to start characters at first level with maximum hit points, just to give them a little bit, like, let them have 2 hits before they drop instead of 1. I'm not sure that's bad. So those are some house rules that I've been considering. These, everyone but the last one I have run myself and have worked well for me in my Shadowdark game. So I thought I would pass those along. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you did, the best thing you can do is subscribe to the Sly Flourish newsletter. You get a free adventure generator for subscribing, and you get a weekly RPG-related email sent to your inbox every week. It is absolutely free to sign up. You can also support me directly on Patreon. Patrons get access to all kinds of things like those City of Arches, Key of Worlds scenarios, whole bunch of other adventures, whole bunch of other tools, lots of things that you get for becoming a patron of Sly Flourish. And you can pick up any of my books, including City of Arches, Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, The Lazy DM's Companion, Forge of Foes, and more at the Sly Flourish bookstore. Links for all of those in the show notes. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Get out there and play an RPG.